Hi, everyone. Welcome back to 12 Days of Astro Tools. Here we go. First thing is first, we're going to talk about the Ascendant. So people have kindly offered themselves up as tribute, and I am using a real person with a fictional name, and I chose Leon. Look at the birth date. You know who you are. Chose Leon because I was like, surely she has some Leo. Leon is such a cute name. Um, and I mean, her descendants in Leo, which makes her ascendant, her rising in Aquarius. But other than that, no Leo placements to speak of. So, anyway, her name is Leon for the purpose of today's example. So I talked yesterday, and if you haven't watched yesterday's video, I suggest you do, because I talked yesterday about what these all are. If Leon and I were in dialogue right now, in conversation together, I would be checking in with her first to say, this is what you maybe spoke about or referenced on your intake form, and like, where are you at now? And what might have changed, what might be different. So we would go through that, and then we would look at the bulk of my time, which is sharing different facets of the astrology chart. And then we talk about takeaways. This is very much the agenda. So we'd have the check-in, find out what is kind of on the mind, and then we would go into my piece where I contextualize the chart and what it is that we're doing together today. So again, this has been discussed in yesterday's video, so feel free to give that a listen, give that a watch. But anyway, I have this sort of spiel that I give people, and this sort of standardized contextualization process so that we're thinking about things in the same terms, and we can utilize and leverage the language of astrology as a meaning-making tool. So instead of coming to me and saying, like, let's talk about my issues, I know exactly what they are, which is a great activity, a great way to engage. But a lot of times we don't view our lives with that level of clarity. And especially when stuff is going on, when things are happening, when different energies are pulling us or pushing us in varying different directions, as often happens, it sort of takes the onus off of us to have an answer for everything and instead start to tell stories. So I like to use the sort of play or novel analogy. And I would explain to Leon that, we're going to look at planets, we're going to look at signs, we're going to look at houses, and we're going to look at potentially, if there's time, aspects. And if we think about all of these things in a setting of like a play that we're watching on a stage or a novel that we're reading on the couch, the planets represent the characters and the signs represent the like backdrops, the settings. The houses can be viewed as like the external motivating factor. So oftentimes in a play, let's think of like Shakespeare, Hamlet, wouldn't have had a lot going on in it had it not been for these external factors, like not to spoil anything, but killing off different characters, creating a play within a play. There has to be activity, and there has to be aspects which are like plot points. So you can have a big cast of characters, and if they never talk to each other, you don't really have much of a story. So for the Ascendant, I am happy to be using Leon as an example. So I'll show you their chart in full in a moment. It is anonymized, but you'll see their birth date and time and location. And so what we're going to start with regardless of whether you're Leon or your own person. We're going to start with the ascendant because this is a calculated point. And so it's not a planet, it's not a celestial body traveling through the orbit, traveling through the sky. But this is a point that acts as our purpose in life. And one of my favorite analogies is it's like the sunglasses that we wear or the lenses that we wear to see and to be seen. So if you have cat eye glasses to see the world sees you in those cat eye glasses. So we've got at the first degree Aquarius. That is the ascendant point for Leon, which means that your captain, your driver, is Saturn. And as we'll see in a moment, Saturn in Sagittarius is the chart ruler. So this is the planet that like drives actions, thoughts, behaviors. And this is like the guide, the captain of the ship, the driver of the getaway car, who takes you towards what feels good. And I got that language from Michael J. Morris, and I really loved its succinct brevity, but it expresses so much. So I wouldn't normally bring up the chart at this point in a reading, but for the sake of this example, and for those of you following along at home, this is the entire picture here. So this is the example. Thank you very much, Leon. And we're seeing, okay, this is the ascendant, 1 degree of Aquarius. So then we look to Saturn because Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius. Saturn rules Aquarius as well as Capricorn. And we see that Saturn is in the house of Jupiter. So this is where we start to do a bit of almost like genealogy in a way, but more so in terms of like who rules what. So while Saturn over here rules Aquarius, which is a Leon's rising sign, it's actually Jupiter that calls the shots for Saturn. And Jupiter is in Gemini, which means Jupiter has to hang out and chat with, get on the phone with Mercury, who is in Libra. So then we're bouncing back, portal jumping to Venus because Venus rules Libra. And we see that Venus is in Cancer, ruled by the moon. The moon is one of the fundamental parts of the astrology reading anyway. So it's really nice to see who is in charge of what, because we are arriving at the moon, which we would be chatting about in the reading anyway. And we're seeing, okay, the moon is in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. And what do you know? This person, Leon, has Mars in Aries in retrograde by the looks of things. So, at least from the chart ruler's perspective, in a very roundabout way, Saturn as a character and Saturn as like this archetype of time, of age, of aging, of physical reality is in a very circuitous way under the watchful eye of Mars, because Mars is at home. Mars is what's called in domicile. And Mars is kind of like calling the shots at the end of the day. It's sort of like a marionette, marionette performer who's moving all the strings up top, but it looks like there's all these different wills and willpower at play. So, what do I want to show you next before spiraling out of control here? Give me 1 second. Yes, okay. So what we would chat about, because again, I'm doing this kind of out of order. We would chat about the Aquarius emblem. We chat about the Aquarius archetype. Aquarius as this like place for your body, for your demeanor, and how Saturn and Sagittarius which is flavored by Jupiter and flavored by this like philosophical, optimistic, forward-thinking planet and chart ruler. We could talk about Aquarius, and this is where we start to get into like dialogue. So in the reading, while I'm explaining a number of either context or certain concepts and ideas and like what language follows what archetype, this is a time where we can chat and we can figure out like, okay, how does this resonate with you? What does it mean for you to inhabit this Saturn ruled body? And that's something that I can't magic up. I can't assume what Leon would say in response. But what I can share is what I would share with Leon, which is we can see Aquarius as this setting, this backdrop that is very cognizant of the outliers. So the backdrop to the play could be a really cold skyscraper, really minimalist or brutalist architecture. Those are two different things. Let's go with brutalist architecture. And maybe there's some background actors. Maybe there's some like unnamed characters that are milling around and they are unable to get into the building. It's a building that is supposed to be available for anybody that fits the rules, that complies. And Leon may find herself with these unnamed characters. These people are, you know, insecure about their housing. These people are in need of medical or mental health attention. These people are underfed, underemployed, and these people are clearly in need of help, in need of assistance, and are clearly full of, you know, the dignity, the essential dignity that we all have, inherent dignity that we all have within us. And that has been at every turn it seems to have almost been stamped out of them or tried to be taken from them. And this is sort of like home, or it could be home for Leon, because this is where her body could thrive, this place of noticing, this place of observing those who have been shunned, those who have been told not to be observed. And this idea that there is a system in place and it is not working. And Leon knows that. Leon is very aware of that, potentially. So we would talk about that. We talk about the Aquarius archetypes kind of in that way. It would be a lot more back and forth. And then we would talk about Saturn as this character of like the driver of the ship. So because Saturn is the furthest traditional planet from us, we would actually be looking at, through Leon's life, we'd be looking at what aspects are being made to Saturn, and how is that progressing her story along. So that is all I'm going to say about the Ascendant for the time being. And feel free to follow along as I offer the 12 tools of astrology, 12 days of astrology, 12 tools of astrology, still landing on a name. And please feel free to, if you're watching this somewhat live, provide me with your chart to be used as an example. because I've got several different components that I'm going to be looking at, and I am excited to dive into even more charts as we go through. So feel free to follow this account, feel free to share this with friends, and feel free to send me your chart details. I would need your birth date, your birth time, and your birth location. And next, we're going to be looking at, one moment, please. Oh, hang on. The sun, moon, and the moon phase. So that will be tomorrow's video. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.